Tashi was a young Buddhist monk who had felt a deep thirst for spiritual knowledge since an early age. As a child, he was fascinated by the Buddhist teachings and yearned to deepen his understanding of the Dharma. Despite having studied the sutras extensively and participated in numerous retreats and teachings, Tashi sensed there was still something missing in his journey toward enlightenment. One day, during one of his morning meditations at the abbey, Tashi experienced a profound insight. He realized that although his intellect was filled with knowledge, his heart had yet to grasp the essence of the Buddhist teachings. It was then that Tashi decided it was time to seek a master who could guide him, not only through paths of knowledge, but also into the mysteries of silence. Tashi set out on his quest, traveling through villages and forests in search of the most wise and renowned teacher in the region. His steps led him to a distant monastery, hidden among the snowy mountains of the Himalayas. There, he had heard rumors of an old, enigmatic monk named Lama Tsering, whose teachings were as profound as his silence. After days of arduous trekking, Tashi finally reached the monastery. As he entered the gates, he felt an atmosphere of serenity and quiet that completely enveloped him. Taking a deep breath, the young monk walked through the corridors until he saw in the distance the figure of an elder sitting in a lotus position, absorbed in meditation. Approaching slowly, Tashi could observe in detail the man who seemed to emanate an aura of wisdom and peace. His eyes were closed, his face serene and still. For long minutes, Tashi stood there, contemplating the scene, feeling gradually wrapped in the quietude of the environment. Finally, the old monk slowly opened his eyes and gazed at Tashi with a penetrating look as if he could read his soul. The young monk knelt respectfully and, with his heart racing, said, "Noble Lama, I have come from afar in search of your teachings. I have heard of your wisdom and wish to become your disciple, if you would accept me." Lama Tsering remained silent for a few moments, his eyes fixed on Tashi's face. The young monk felt a slight tremor run through his body, not knowing what to expect from this enigmatic man. Then, to his surprise, Lama Tsering gave a slight nod, a silent gesture that seemed to signal his acceptance. Tashi felt a wave of relief and hope wash over his heart. "Very well, young one," the old monk finally spoke, his voice deep and calm. "If this is your desire, then welcome to this humble monastery. Here, you will find what you seek, though not in the way you might imagine." Tashi didn't fully understand the meaning of those words, but his heart was filled with gratitude and determination. He had finally found the master who would guide him on his spiritual journey. In the days that followed, Tashi carefully observed each gesture and action of Lama Tsering, marveling at the elder monk's serenity and presence. He noticed that, in his daily routine, Lama Tsering spent most of his time in silence meditating, contemplating nature, or simply sitting, immersed in his own inner quietude. Tashi longed to receive instructions, to hear the teachings of this wise man. But, to his surprise, Lama Tsering rarely spoke, communicating mostly through gestures and brief phrases. The young monk felt frustrated, as he deeply desired to learn from the renowned master. However, as the days passed, Tashi began to realize that even in his silence, Lama Tsering conveyed a depth of teachings he had never experienced in his years of study. There was a silent wisdom in the old monk's presence, a quality of attention and connection with the present moment that seemed to captivate Tashi. Gradually, the young monk learned to observe every gesture, every expression, every look from Lama Tsering. He realized that, even without words, his master was teaching him something fundamental about the nature of the mind and existence. After that brief yet meaningful conversation by the stream, Tashi became even more determined to become Lama Tsering's disciple. He felt that he had finally found the master who could guide him on his quest for enlightenment. Filled with hope, Tashi asked for permission to stay at the monastery and study under Lama Tsering's guidance. To his delight, the old monk nodded affirmatively, indicating his consent. In the days that followed, Tashi immersed himself completely in the monastery's routine, dedicating himself to the various daily tasks, from household chores to meditation sessions. He carefully observed Lama Tsering's every step and gesture, hoping to receive some direct instruction or teaching from the wise master. Yet, to his disappointment, Lama Tsering remained silent most of the time. Occasionally, he would utter a few brief phrases, but nothing beyond simple, practical guidance about life in the monastery. Tashi grew increasingly frustrated. Although he had found the master he had long sought, he couldn't obtain the teachings he so desired. His eager and knowledge-hungry mind struggled against Lama Tsering's seemingly indifferent approach. How can I learn from someone who refuses to teach? Tashi wondered restlessly. I came from so far away in search of his wisdom, and now I feel ignored and lost. There were moments when the young monk even considered abandoning everything and returning to his former monastery. Patience and humility seemed like ever more distant qualities from his impulsive and demanding temperament. Yet, something within Tashi prevented him from giving up. He sensed that, behind that apparent silence and indifference, there was a depth and wisdom he did not yet understand. And despite his impatience, he couldn't deny that Lama Tsering's presence stirred a feeling of peace and trust in his heart. Gradually, Tashi began to realize that, even without words, his master was teaching him something very important. He noticed that whenever irritation and frustration arose in his mind, Lama Tsering seemed to radiate an even deeper calm, as if inviting him to settle down and trust the process. One afternoon, while meditating alongside the old monk, Tashi finally managed to quiet himself and observe Lama Tsering's serene posture and expression more closely. For the first time, he didn't feel compelled to fill the silence with questions or desires. He simply allowed himself to be present, breathing softly and letting his mind calm down. At that moment, Tashi had a clear realization that true learning did not happen merely through the acquisition of information or verbal instructions, but rather through the ability to fully surrender to the present moment, to observe with clarity the nature of his own mind. Feeling renewed and inspired, Tashi dedicated himself even more to the practices of meditation and contemplation taught at the monastery. He noticed that, gradually, his mind was becoming calmer and his understanding of the Dharma deepened. One morning, while Tashi was sweeping the courtyard, Lama Tsering approached him and, with a gesture, indicated that he should follow. Curious, the young monk obeyed, wondering where his master would lead him this time. The two walked in silence until they reached a clearing in the forest. There, Lama Tsering sat on a stone, gazing at the landscape. Tashi, hesitant, settled beside him, waiting attentively for any sign or word that might reveal the purpose of this visit. After a few moments of silence, the old monk turned to Tashi and, with a gentle smile, said, "My young disciple, you have shown patience and perseverance in your practice. Now it is time to learn a fundamental lesson about the nature of the mind." Tashi felt his heart beat faster, eager to hear the words of wisdom his master was about to share. "Observe this forest, Tashi," Lama Tsering continued, gesturing to the scenery. "It is full of sounds, movement, and life. Yet at the center of all this activity, there is a deep and unchanging silence." The young monk nodded, sensing that these words resonated within him in a meaningful way. "Just like this forest, your mind is also composed of countless thoughts, emotions, and sensations," the master went on. "But at its core, there's a field of pure, silent awareness that remains undisturbed by all experiences." Tashi listened intently, his mind calming as Lama Tsering's words sank deeply into his being. "It is in this inner silence that you will find the key to understanding the true nature of existence," the old monk said with serenity. "Do not cling to the turbulence of the mind. Learn to observe it with equanimity, like clouds passing through the sky." A deep reverence and gratitude arose in Tashi's heart. For the first time, He felt ready to receive Lama Tsering's teachings, as his mind had finally quieted enough to grasp the wisdom his master imparted. In that moment, Tashi realized that true learning was not just about accumulating knowledge, but about cultivating a quality of presence and acceptance in the face of all life experiences. And to reach this understanding, patience and humility were essential virtues. Full of determination, Tashi committed himself to continue his journey of practice and self-discovery, trusting that in due time, Lama Tsering's teachings would unfold and bear fruit. After that moment of enlightenment in the clearing, Tashi began to experience a profound transformation in his relationship with Lama Tsering and the teachings of the Dharma. He realized that his mind had become calmer and more receptive, capable of observing internal and external phenomena with greater clarity. During meditation sessions, Tashi was able to remain silent for longer periods, simply observing the flow of his thoughts and sensations without compulsively engaging with them. This practice of mindfulness and equanimity began to reflect in his daily life at the monastery, bringing greater serenity and clarity to his actions. Increasingly, Tashi felt fascinated by the subtlety and depth of the teachings silently conveyed by Lama Tsering. He noticed that, even without uttering words, the old monk could communicate a wisdom that went far beyond the intellect, directly touching the disciple's heart and mind. One morning, while Tashi was sweeping the monastery courtyard, Lama Tsering passed by him and, with a subtle gesture, indicated that he should follow. Intrigued, the young monk obeyed, following his master to the monastery's library. Once there, Lama Tsering walked slowly among the shelves filled with ancient books, stopping before a particular shelf. Delicately, he took a leather-bound volume and handed it to Tashi. "Here is a text that may help you better understand the nature of the mind," the master said, his voice deep and serene. "Read it attentively and reflect on what you learn." Tashi accepted the book with reverence, feeling a wave of gratitude and anticipation. Finally, Lama Tsering had offered him explicit teaching, something he had long desired in recent months. The young monk spent the following days absorbed in reading that ancient manuscript. It was a classical Buddhist text addressing the nature of the mind and meditation methods for awakening consciousness. As he progressed in his reading, Tashi felt as if the written words resonated deeply with his own experiences. Everything he had lived through while living with Lama, Tsering, the lessons learned in patience and silence, now found correspondence in that spiritual treatise. One day, while meditating in the monastery garden, Tashi had a profound insight. He realized that all this time, his master had been teaching him not through words, but through his own presence and way of being. Every gesture, every expression, every moment of silence from Lama Tsering had been a living transmission of Buddhist teachings. The old monk not only spoke about the nature of the mind, but embodied in his very being the essence of what he sought to convey. Tashi felt ashamed for having been, for so long, an impatient and demanding disciple. He now understood that true learning transcends the pursuit of information or instructions. It lies in the ability to observe, to attune oneself to the quality of attention and presence emanating from the master. Filled with gratitude, Tashi began to dedicate himself even more deeply to the practices of meditation and contemplation. He noticed that each day his mind became clearer and his understanding of the Dharma deepened in a subtle yet tangible way. One afternoon, while Tashi was walking through the monastery gardens, he encountered Lama Tsering, who was sitting in silence, watching the sunset. Without hesitation, the young monk approached and, with reverence, sat beside his master. The two remained there, immersed in the beauty of the moment, sharing the same atmosphere of quietude and serenity. Tashi felt that, in that instant, there was no need for words. His mind was calm, his senses fully receptive. Suddenly, Lama Tsering turned to Tashi and, with a gentle smile, said, "My dear disciple, I see that you have finally begun to unravel the mysteries of silence. Your mind now resembles a clear lake, capable of reflecting the nature of all things with clarity. Tashi felt his heart fill with gratitude and humility. He knew that, in that moment, his master was conveying something very valuable, something that could never be expressed in words. True wisdom, Tashi, is not found only in books or verbal teachings. Lama Tsering continued, his voice soft and serene. It resides in this ability to observe, to be entirely present, to connect with the essence of the Dharma that permeates all existence. The young monk nodded, feeling that his own recent experiences corroborated those words. He realized that as his mind quieted and his attention refined, his understanding of the nature of the mind and reality deepened in a subtle yet profound way. Keep alive this spirit of silent observation, my disciple, Lama Tsering said, gently placing his hand on Tashi's shoulder. For it is in this field of mindful attention that you will find the answers you seek. Tashi felt a wave of inspiration and determination sweep through his being. In that instant, he understood that true learning was not just about acquiring knowledge, but about the ability to become an attentive and receptive observer of one's own experience. Filled with gratitude and reverence, Tashi made a deep bow to his master, knowing that from that moment on, his spiritual journey would gain a new dimension, guided by Lama Tsering's silent wisdom. After that profound moment of understanding by the garden, Tashi felt that his relationship with Lama Tsering had transformed in a significant way. He realized that his master not only taught but embodied in his very being the essence of Buddhist teachings. Each day, Tashi strove to deepen his practice of meditation and silent observation. He noticed that as his mind quieted, his ability to perceive the subtlety of both internal and external phenomena became increasingly refined. During practice sessions in the monastery, Tashi could sense the quality of energy and presence of Lama Tsering, as if the old monk radiated a wisdom that transcended words. His heart filled with reverence and gratitude, as he felt he was being guided by someone who had truly realized the teachings he conveyed. One day, as Tashi meditated alone in his room, he heard a gentle knock at the door. Upon opening it, he found Lama Tsering looking at him with calm. "Come with me, my young disciple," said the master with a polite gesture. "I have something to show you." Tashi followed Lama Tsering through the monastery's corridors, feeling a mixture of curiosity and anticipation. Finally, they reached a small room where the old monk settled into the lotus position, inviting Tashi to do the same. After a few moments of silence, Lama Tsering took an incense stick and lit it slowly. Tashi watched, fascinated, as the smoke rose in spirals, filling the room with its subtle fragrance. "Observe the smoke, Tashi," the master said, his voice calm and serene. "Watch how it arises and dissipates, clinging to nothing." The young monk kept his gaze steady, following the gentle movement of the smoke. As he observed, he felt his own mind calming, becoming receptive and present. Just like this smoke, all phenomena arise and disappear without any permanent essence, Lama Tsering continued. Be it the sound of a bell, the changing of seasons, or the flow of your own thoughts, everything is transient in nature. Tashi nodded silently, feeling that his master's words resonated deeply with his experience. He remembered the lessons on the impermanent nature of existence he had studied in Buddhist texts. "However, my disciple," Lama Tsering continued with a penetrating look, "behind this constant change, there exists a silent, unchanging field of awareness that witnesses all phenomena without identifying with them." After a brief pause, the old monk took the incense stick and turned it slowly between his fingers. "Watch the smoke carefully, Tashi. See how it arises, transforms, and fades away without affecting the flame that creates it." Tashi kept his eyes fixed on the smoke's graceful dance, feeling his mind settle into a deep, focused attention. Like this flame, the essence of your own mind is pure, luminous, and undisturbed. Lama Tsaring said, his voice imbued with wisdom, "It neither arises nor ceases. It simply is, witnessing the entire flow of existence with serenity." The young monk felt his heart fill with reverence and insight. He understood that his master was teaching him something fundamental about the nature of consciousness, something beyond mere words. "Therefore, Tashi," Lama Tsaring continued gently, "do not cling to transient phenomena nor reject them. Learn to accept them with the same grace with which this smoke arises and fades." Tashi nodded, feeling that this teaching resonated deeply within him. He realized that, like the smoke, all events and experiences in life were fleeting, lacking any permanent substance. And when you recognize this silent, unchanging essence in your own mind, the old monk said with a serene smile, you will come to understand the true nature of the Dharma and attain liberation. In that moment, Tashi felt as if a veil had lifted from his mind. He glimpsed, with incredible clarity, the essence of the teaching Lama Tsaring had imparted. The young monk now understood that true wisdom lay not merely in the accumulation of knowledge, but in the ability to cultivate a serene and mindful awareness toward all phenomena. Only in this way could he recognize the luminous, unconditioned nature of his own consciousness. Filled with gratitude and humility, Tashi bowed deeply to his master, sensing that this silent teaching had touched the core of his being. He knew that, from that moment on, his spiritual journey would take on a new dimension, guided by the wisdom conveyed through that simple act of observing incense smoke. In the days that followed, Tashi dedicated himself with even greater devotion to meditation and contemplation. Whenever his mind became restless or scattered, he recalled the lesson of the incense stick, observing the arising and phenomena with serenity and acceptance. Gradually, Tashi noticed that his ability to remain present and attentive without identifying with the contents of his mind was becoming more natural and spontaneous. He felt that, with each practice session, his understanding of the nature of consciousness deepened, bringing him ever closer to the realization of the Dharma. One morning, as Tashi walked through the monastery gardens, he crossed paths with Lama Tsaring, who greeted him with a warm gesture. "My dear disciple," the old monk said with a serene smile, "I see that you have been striving diligently in your practice. Your awareness grows more refined and your mind more free." Tashi felt his heart fill with joy and gratitude. He had a clear sense that his master could read directly into his mind and heart, as if witnessing his own transformation. "Now, it is time to take a step forward," Lama Tsaring continued with a penetrating look. "For true understanding of the Dharma does not come solely from cultivating awareness, but also through expanding compassion." Tashi nodded, feeling a mixture of excitement and apprehension. He knew that new challenges and teachings awaited him on this spiritual journey, sharpening his determination to proceed with humility and courage. "Come with me, my disciple," the old monk said, gesturing along the path. "I have something to show you that will further deepen your understanding of the nature of mind and existence." Tashi followed Lama Tsaring, confident that this next stage of his journey would lead to an even more profound transformation, guided by his master's silent wisdom. In the weeks following the incense stick lesson, Tashi dedicated himself with even greater effort and determination to his meditation and contemplation practices at the monastery. He felt that, with each passing day, his mind grew calmer, and his understanding of the nature of consciousness deepened in increasingly tangible ways. During his practice sessions, Tashi experienced moments of profound stillness and clarity, where his mind seemed to merge with the silent, luminous essence of the Dharma. He realized that, like the smoke of incense, all phenomena arose and vanished before his awareness, leaving no permanent traces. Gradually, Tashi began to recognize this quality of mindfulness and equanimity, not only during meditation, but also in his everyday life at the monastery. His interactions with other monks, his daily chores, Even the thoughts and emotions that arose in his mind all seemed to unfold with a newfound lightness and clarity. One evening, during a meditation session in the Buddha Hall, Tashi underwent a profoundly transformative experience. As his mind quieted and his focus refined, he felt a clear sensation of the boundaries between his individual consciousness and the entirety of existence dissolving. Tashi felt as if the entire cosmos resonated in unison with the silent essence of his own mind. There was no longer any separation between subject and object, observer and observed. Everything was a harmonious dance of interdependent phenomena, flowing in perfect unity. In that moment, Tashi directly and unmistakably understood the fundamental truth of the Buddhist teaching. The intrinsic nature of his mind was identical to the nature of reality. There was no isolated self, only a boundless, luminous awareness witnessing the unfolding of existence. Filled with a sense of ecstasy and humility, Tashi allowed himself to dissolve into that experience of cosmic unity. Everything became clear, simple, and profound. There was nothing more to seek, nothing to attain. He simply was in perfect harmony with the flow of life. When Tashi finally emerged from that state of deep illumination, he felt that his identity had radically transformed. He was no longer the restless, anxious young monk who had arrived at the monastery months before. Now, his mind was serene, his understanding expanded, his heart overflowing with compassion. Tashi knew that from that moment on, his spiritual journey would enter a new phase, marked by a wisdom that transcended intellectual boundaries. He had realized, through his own experience, the ultimate essence of the Dharma. The nature of the mind is identical to the nature of reality, and this fundamental unity is the key to final liberation from suffering. Filled with gratitude and reverence, Tashi sought out Lama Tsering and, kneeling before him, shared his transformative experience. The old monk listened attentively, a serene smile lighting up his face. "My dear disciple," said Lama Tsering, gently placing a hand on Tashi's shoulder, "I see that you have finally reached the understanding you were searching for. Your mind is now like a clear lake, reflecting the entirety of existence." Tashi nodded, tears of joy streaming freely down his face. He knew that, in that moment, his master was acknowledging the realization that had awakened within him. The Buddha taught us that the true nature of the mind is identical to the nature of reality. Lama Tsering continued, his voice deep and calm. And you, Tashi, have just experienced this fundamental unity within your own being. The young monk listened, deeply moved by his master's words. He felt that, in that instant, a profound connection was being established between them, transcending the duality of teacher and student. Now it is time to carry this understanding beyond the walls of this monastery, Lama Tsering said with a meaningful look. For your realization is not yours alone. It belongs to all beings who suffer. Tashi nodded, feeling his resolve rekindle with renewed strength. He knew that his spiritual journey was not over, but had instead gained a new purpose: to share the wisdom of the Dharma and help others reach liberation from suffering. In the following months, Tashi continued to deepen his meditation and contemplation practice while also preparing to return to the outside world. He knew that his mission now was to bring the Buddha's message to everyone he encountered, guiding them with compassion and wisdom. On a full moon night, during a profound meditation session, Tashi once again experienced an expansion of his consciousness. He felt his mind merge with the luminosity and peace of the universe, dissolving all his personal concerns and boundaries. In that moment, Tashi understood that the true essence of the Dharma did not reside solely in teachings and practices, but in the very experience of awakening, of recognizing the unconditioned nature of the mind. And this realization, achieved through the power of silence and mindful observation, was the greatest gift he could offer all beings. Filled with humility and determination, Tashi prepared to leave the monastery, knowing that his master, Lama Tsarang, had imparted to him the most precious wisdom, the recognition of the fundamental unity between mind and reality, between the microcosm and the macrocosm. As he walked toward the outside world, Tashi felt his heart overflowing with gratitude and compassion. He knew that from that moment on, his life would be devoted to sharing the message of liberation, using the power of silence and attentive presence as his primary teaching tools. And so, Tashi set forth, carrying the wisdom passed down by Lama Tsarang, ready to walk new paths and touch the lives of all those he encountered, guiding them toward the realization of the silent, luminous nature of existence.